there, welcome back to our show. Today I'm going to look at two Studio Ghibli films, which is Grave of the Fireflies and The Cat Returns. Now, Grave of the Fireflies is directed by Aizawa Takahata, who is one of the people who ran the studio, and The Cat Returns was directed by Hiroyoko Morita. I probably butchered the names, but hopefully I haven't. I mean, it's like I do try my best not to do that, but you know, I'm not great at certain Japanese names. Once I get used to pronouncing them, I'm okay. It's just when you first start doing them, I'm usually pretty bad. Get my mouth around the sounds of the names. So these are. I've been going through the Studio Ghibli films since they've been a massive blind spot. You know, I watched tons of Japanese films, gangster films, all these other classic films, and the Ghibli ones are like, I'll get to them. I saw one or two of them, liked them, but never loved them. So it was like, I'll get to them eventually. So now I'm actually getting to them because I've been recommending them so often, and I'm really enjoying it. These two I really enjoyed. These are two of my favourites of what I've seen so far. And of course, the two of them not done by Miyazaki, who is the god of Studio Ghibli. But so Grave of the Fireflies and Cat Returns are both very different films. One's based in reality, one is based in fantasy. The Cat Returns is very charming. There's a dark side to it, but it's still pretty charming. While the Grave of the Fireflies is not charming at all. So I'll start with Grave of the Fireflies. That came first. It came early on in the studio's lifeline. They'd only done a few films before this. This is either the third or the fourth film they made. So it's not like it was they were established, like, behemoth at this point. They were making films, but they were getting good responses, but they weren't like what they are now, which is like every film they make is like a big event. So, this is an adaptation of a book all about surviving in Japan at the late stages of the war and after the war, where a lot of people were made destitute. People who had families, who had lives, were suddenly made destitute. And, you know, it's about what war does to people, not in the front lines, but what it does to people behind the lines. Just try to live their lives when there's food shortages, there's shortages of clothes, there's shortages of basic humanity a lot of the time. So it starts off with a mother and her two children. The father's out to war, she's taking after children. There's an older brother and a younger sister, and the older brother looks after the younger sister. That's his job, basically. And essentially, there's always air raids. There's air raids everywhere. The mother has a heart condition, and during one of the early raids, the mother was killed in an air raid. She's killed in a horrible way. I mean, her body is fully burnt. She ends up in hospital. The boy goes to see her. She dies, and he keeps it from his sister for a while because his sister's only like 4. She doesn't understand. She's already having a hard enough time dealing with the idea that her father's not there. But the idea of her mother not there is too much for her. There was an aunt who finds them on the street and takes them in. But the aunt has her own problem. The aunt has a daughter who works in the hospital, but the aunt's essentially trying to make ends meet, and she resents the children who don't seem to do anything. They seem to be there, but there's no school anymore, there's no nothing. They're just basically they're taking food from the mouths, basically, and they're in the point of view of the aunt. And essentially, the kids start to sell the clothes of the mother to try and get through and make it easier for the aunt while they're waiting for the father to come back from the war. As the situation gets worse, they fall out with the aunt and end up living in the streets, basically in an air raid shelter that's outside of town that no one goes to. And it's them trying to survive, where it's stealing or whatever else they can do, but they're actually dealing with the idea of the lack of funds. Even in war end, no one cares about them. There's a whole bunch of people that no one cares about anymore because people are just still trying to survive because the war's been so horrible. And it's not getting any better once the war's over. Like, people are still struggling to survive. People are still starving. Malnutrition's a major issue. And every country's got it that bad because of the war, so no one can really come in with aid to them. And since Japan was the perpetrator of the war, they're going to be the last people anybody's going to actually go and help. At this point, the son realises that his father was also dead in the war. Like his father stopped writing, and eventually they realised the ship he was on was sunk with no survivors. And it's a slow disintegration of these two children as they're dealing with malnutrition and as they're dealing with the idea that nobody in the world cares for them. And that's the film. That's what the film's about. It's about the idea of those we leave behind. You know, those people who deserve our help but are not going to get it. It happens all the time in the world. I mean, it's still going on in various countries. We could point fingers quite easily at certain countries who it was happening to right now. But it happens all the time. I mean, there's lots of countries in the world who are constantly needing food, needing provisions, and don't get it. Either because the land they've got is terrible, or there's some political strife, so that people have to suffer for it. This is a story of as old as humanity, and it's not going to end anytime soon. So the film just looks at the phenomena of that, what happens to these people, and looks how horrifying it is about people who you would see on TV cameras in war-torn zones, and people asking for money for them, and that's it. That's all you ever see of them. And this is the lives of one of these kind of people who basically are basically a teenage boy and his small sister having to try and survive and not having the education or the facility to do it. Now, there is a kind of early scene with that starts off showing you how bad things are going to get for them before you go back in time and see how he got there. And it adds a supernatural element to the whole thing, which is a way to give some comfort for how dark this film gets. But the film is not like it doesn't like constantly make you think life is hell all the time. It's like they do find moments of joy with each other as brother and sister, you know, to play, him getting her to play and things like that, and try and give her things to make her mind off it. There are moments of levity in the film, but there's also, whenever there's a moment of levity, you know something bad is going to happen. There's always a sense of tragedy waiting for them. It's like they're not escaping this for their lives, and they're not escaping this with any sense of potential for survival. They are the forgotten people, and it's just a beautiful film. It's wonderfully done. It is pretty depressing, but I knew that before I went into this one, so I was like, I was prepared. I mean, if I went in not knowing that, it would have been more brutal. But it is a beautiful film. Japan tends to have really great films like The Human Condition, this one, about the war and what's happened in the war and the atrocities of the war. I mean, there's also a Come and See, which is not a Japanese film, it's an Eastern European film about the war, seen through the idea of what happens to the children in this and what happens to the people in the war. I mean, that's kind of a area that they don't go into very often. Most people who do war movies want to do the soldier stuff. But whenever you do it right, it can be devastating because it just shows you like the gung-ho stuff's actually the problem a lot of the time, and this is what happens because of it. And if it wasn't for the macho stuff and all the kind of let's take this island or let's take this thing, there would be no need for defence against that. There would be no need for this desolation throughout the land that causes that. This film does not go into the politics, it just goes into what the people are about and what happens to the people in a war zone. It's a beautiful film. I highly recommend it. I think because it's animated, it actually takes a little bit of the sting out of it because you're not seeing real children do this. I don't think you could do. I think the young girl, there's no way you could probably get an actress to be able to do that. You probably need animation to pull that off effectively. I'm sure I think they've done live action versions, but it's kind of like it's one of those things. Is like I'm not sure it can be effective. I think sometimes animation's helpful for giving letting you know what happened, but not giving you the full force horror, so you can try and find some sort of sanity amidst the horrors. So that's Grave of the Fireflies. It's wonderful. You can catch it on Netflix because Netflix does all the Studio Ghibli films. Now we've got The Cat Returns, which comes much later in the cycle of Studio Ghibli films, but they've done a lot more popular films. They've even done the Porco Rosso, which is the flying pig, which is like a World War II movie, but the resistance and stuff. But it was also like a exciting World War II type of thing, even though it's set just before the war. All about flyers. So they've done various types of films. And The Cat Returns is much more in the fantasy element, where basically a girl who lives with her mum, she's going to school, she fancies a boy. It's a very typical kind of story. And then on the way home, she saves a cat from being run over. And she just does it because she doesn't want to see the cat killed. That's it. There's no ulterior motive. It's just like, I want to make sure this cat gets safely across the road. Turns out the cat is the prince of cats in this world of cats. And the father sees what happened and thinks, let's celebrate this girl who saved my son. And there's some of this procession of cats that come out to her outside her house one night. And she's given a scroll, she's much praised. And what she doesn't realise is they're actually planning to kidnap her and take her to the world of cats so she can marry the prince. Which she does not want to do, obviously. So she gets help from this cat detective who also is a pal to this other cat who's a big lumbering fat cat that just looks lazy. In fact, it's a warrior cat that actually can cause lots of damage when the world annoys him enough for him to fight anybody. So you've basically a Sherlock Holmes cat, and you've got this brawler cat, and they've got a bird that they also work with, and basically they live in this sort of little magical place. It's just off the side of into Tokyo, and through instructions, it's very hard to get to. Which have to follow instructions perfectly. In other words, it's leading you into a kind of magical world, and when she tells them her problems, and then is kidnapped by the cats because they want to take her back to marry the Prince of Cats. The detective decides to get involved. Him and his pal end up following them through this maze of portals that actually to get them to the land of cats. Well, that's the detective cat had never been, but always fancied going to. And then he has to rescue this girl who's turned into a cat as the thing goes on, so that she can marry because she starts tall and she ends up being smaller, and she's starting to turn into a cat, and she doesn't want to be a cat. Well, she doesn't want to marry another cat. So he has to protect her and defeat the evil father of the prince. It's a wonderful film. It's delightful. It's only an hour 15, so it really is. It just sticks to the point always. And just when one section starts to feel like it might be going on a little bit, it moves to the next section. It never stops at anything that will slow the pace down. But it also knows how to have charm, how to have grace within those sections. How everything's just perfectly done, but they also know when it's enough to move to the next bit to the story. When actually we've given you enough, and you can come back and watch this when you want to, and you'll find more details, but we're moving on now. And the way a lot of really great animated films know what to do, because whatever's going on in your head will fill in the gaps, and you'll probably imagine stuff that's not actually there. The thing is, with Miyazaki, sometimes I think his films are going too long. And it's like, you could cut a little bit out here or there and it might actually be more perfect. This film just knows how to pace it properly. And, which is another thing, we Grave the Fireflies was the same thing, where I knew exactly how to pace it. And with Miyazaki, sometimes I've feeling is he lets it go on too long. But that's just my opinion. I think that's why I never used to watch the Ghibli films much, because I just seen Miyazaki ones, and they are a bit longer sometimes. And at times, I think he lets some his films breathe too much. But that's just my personal taste. A lot of people love his films, so I'm just saying these two films are much more up my alley for pacing. And also the charm of this film, Cat Returns, is beautiful. Just the world of the cats is slowly introduced. They don't just throw it at you. First you see one cat, then who can talk to the person, and then say thank you and then move on, which just shocks her. And then you get a procession of cats, and then you get to see more of the world of the cats, and then finally you get into the actual kingdom of cats, and all the other different levels of who's important, who's not, because like any kingdom, you've got the haves and have nots, and just because of cats doesn't mean they don't have these social structures. And it essentially becomes this element in the second half. It's like a Sherlock Holmes character who was also acting a bit like Scarlet Pimpernel, and it basically is a kind of daring do mission of like a very much Alexander Dumas type of story amidst this world of cats, and a lot of daring do, and like very influenced by like the kind of French literature of when there were still kings, and you could have like a lot of like romantic characters fighting a good fight. It's just wonderful. It's just beautifully done, but it's with cats, which makes it even better. So yeah, I mean, this is one of those weird ones. It's like, I don't want to give away everything about it. It's just like, this is a beautiful film. It's well structured. It sets stuff up early and it pays them off in an interesting way that's not simplistic. It has goals throughout, getting to the next goal, but they never feel like you're getting the plot points. You're getting a story. The plot points are just leading you through the story. It's really well done, in a sense of you always getting just enough, and then the rest is left. You can imagine the rest yourself, and then they'll fill in some stuff that might be different from what you expected, but there's other stuff that just lets you imagine on your own. So it really works, and it's one of those ones that's like, yeah, you could do another one of these quite easily, but I'm glad it didn't. It's one of those ones that's like, it's quite nice. It just works on its own, and it exists on its own, and that's it. I mean, the detective cat was based on a character in another Studio Ghibli film that was just a statue, apparently, that wasn't a character. But the statue got a lot of attention because it looked really interesting, and then they decided to expand that. They thought there was more there. But I'm glad that's all there is, because it's really just wonderful. And now we're probably told, oh no, there's something else. I don't know. I don't know there is, but as soon as you say there's nothing else, you'll probably get someone saying, no, you are wrong. But yeah, this is a delightful film. And just the atmosphere of it all, and just the lead character's a nice character, because she's awkward in a way a teenager is awkward. Without being mean, without being, like, she means well, but she can be awkward and can be unthinking about a teenager can be, while still meaning well. So you can follow her and be on her side through all this adventure without thinking you're dealing with a character who's been made perfect. Which is one of the good things with Studio Ghibli. They always tend to make the characters a little bit imperfect to make the story work better. It actually is like, they're not perfect people. No one's ever perfect people in these films, which is nice, because it's a big problem with animated films where you have your characters, and sometimes the animation is great, the characters are just either too obnoxious because they're trying to be cool, or too nice because they're trying to make you like them, and real life's somewhere in between. And I think if you manage to get that in between element, like Studio Ghibli does, I think it works better. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you go and watch these two films. Again, you can catch them on Netflix. They're easily available. Both of them are fairly short, so you're not going to spend forever on them. So I mean, I think give the Fireflies, I think it's just over an hour and a half, and as I said, Cat Returns an hour 15, so it's not very long films. So I hope you enjoyed this video. That's me for now. Right, bye.